Alright, everybody, welcome in to Notice Sean Domain. You've probably seen my face like tens of million times today on the internet. If you haven't, I don't know what you're doing because I've been online all day. Um, I try not to upload a lot on my day off, but like I got two channels I'm running and I'm trying to keep them both alive. So at some point, I gotta decide where to make a change on maybe I'll make the change on the gaming channel eventually and try to change some stuff up. Um, because I don't want to change much up on this. I mean, eventually things will change again at some point, like artwork, things like that. So if you're here to join me, at all, I'm very happy you're here with me. People will watch this later. People will like end up stopping in and watching this later. But yeah, today was just like after I was done my stream in the morning over on the gaming channel, I ended up having to like re-record the recording for the Bible for this channel. So it kind of like threw everything off, but like you guys got a taste of what was going on in chapter 10. So I went on to 11 earlier this morning, which I posted if you have a chance. But yeah, I kind of wish I would have woke up earlier, but hey, things happen, and that's just how it happens sometimes. I wanted to rest, so um, but I think one of my days off in the near future, I'm gonna like take a downtime. Um, there's gonna be a week where I like take extra days off from time to time because this is a lot of work. I like uploading excessively and stuff like that, and I do a good job at it. It's just that like you know keeping continuously being online sucks because it just really it's a lot of work and a lot of mental exhaustion. And I haven't had people really complain to me today. I've had a lot of people just like, I've had a lot of people just like minding their own business today. Of course, like I like that kind of stuff, but I do want to like eventually try to get what's going on my computer here. All right. But I do want to try to get people to, I want to try to make connections with people that are going to do this with me. And I only hope in due time I can persuade people to come on here at some point. We'll see how that goes later on down the road. But I got some numbers to grow until then. Once the numbers grow and I feel suffice and I feel comfortable enough, I'm gonna try to ask people to come onto the show. There's a few people I already got eyed up that I want to try to get onto the show because of things they talk about on their channels and stuff like that. So, um, and as for reaching out to them, I don't know how that's gonna work. I'm hoping it's very easy, but we'll see. But anyway, let's get started on Exodus chapter 12. Uh, what? Yeah, 12. All right. So, all right. So we are after that. So the last chapter, if you remember, it was the plague of the firstborn. So anything firstborn got the plague and ended up dying. That's what God was cursing Pharaoh with. So now we're on to chapter 12. So the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. All right, chapter 12. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, "This month is to be for you, the first month of your year. Tell the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each man is to take a lamb for his family, one for each household. If any household is too small for a whole lamb, they must share one with their nearest neighbor. Having taken into account the number of people there are, you are to determine the amount of lamb needed in accordance with each person, with what each person will eat. The animals you choose must be year-old males without defect, and you may take them from the sheep or the goats. Take care of them until the 14th day of the month. Then all members of the community of Israel must slaughter them at twilight. So the God's pretty much saying, hey, all these lambs you're about to give out, make sure people do this with them because they gotta do this because of it's what the sacrifice is supposed to be for a God. for this. So the whole reason God dragged everybody out of Egypt that were Israelites, pretty much was to, say praise him pretty much. And he really, really wanted to be praised. So in reverse, he's needing sacrifices now. So then they are to take on some of the blood. Now, then they are to take some of the blood and put it on the side and tops of the door frame of the houses where they ate the lambs. The same night they are to eat meat roasted over the fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. Do not eat the raw meat or boil it in water, but roast it over a fire with the head, legs, and internal organs. Do not leave any of it till morning. If some is left till morning, you must burn it. This is how you are to eat it, with your cloak tucked in your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Eat it and eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. The same night I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn of both people and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign of you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. So the Lord's saying, okay, so what I need from you is you all to just like put a red mark on your door so I can tell it's you. So I'm not going in and plaguing your house in or like any of your children or, you know, anything as such. Which is, he's only doing this to the people of Egypt, um, so that way they can receive their punishment that he wanted to like bring on to them. So this is a day you are to commemorate for generations to come. You shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord, a lasting ordinance. For 7 days you are to eat bread made without yeast. On the first day, remove the yeast from your house. For whoever eats anything with yeast in it from the first day, though the seventh day, must cut off from Israel. On the first day, hold a sacred assembly, and one another on the seventh day. Do no work on these days, except to prepare food for everyone. That is all you may do. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread, because it was on this very day that you brought your division out of Egypt. Celebrate this day as a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. In the first month, you are to eat bread made without yeast. From the evening of the 14th day until the evening of the 21st day, for 7 days, no yeast is to be found in your houses. Sorry. And everyone, whether foreign or native born, who eats anything with yeast in it must be cut off from Israel. So he's saying, hey, if anybody doesn't listen to this command, if anybody eats anything with yeast in it, you're not supposed to be communicating with them. You're supposed to cut them off entirely. So eat nothing made with yeast. Wherever you live, you must eat only unleavened bread. Then Moses summoned all the elders to Israel and said to them, go at once and select the animal for your families and slaughter Passover lambs. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip into the blood in basin, and put some of the blood on top and on both sides of the door frame. None of you shall go out of the door from your house until morning. When the Lord goes through the land to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the top and slide inside of the door frames and will pass over that doorway, and he will not permit this destroy he will not permit the destroy to enter your house and strike you down. So again, he's still talking about what he's going to do here. Um, with the red mark on the door, he won't touch this house again. He won't touch anybody in the house. So he says he's going to go straight over everybody instead of touching it. I actually, when I was a little kid, I saw a cartoon based on this, and I forget what it was, but it always I always remembered it, and I'm trying to figure out where it was from. But I don't think I know they made a movie on Moses. All right, Moses parting the Red Sea, which is the story we're on. But there's an actual cartoon or something I watched growing up. I think it was like Rugrats. They talked about Passover, or something like that, and they put a similar story into the Rugrats episode that talked about Passover. Because in the Rugrats they were Jewish, so that's why they made that show. That's why they made that episode. I think is what I'm understanding. All right. Obey these instructions as a lasting ordinance for you and your descendants. When you enter the land that the Lord will give you, as he promised, observe the ceremony. And when your children ask you, what does this ceremony mean to you? Then tell them it's Passover, sacrifice to the Lord who passed over the houses of Israel in Egypt and spare our homes when he struck down the Egyptians. Then the people bowed down and worshipped the Israelites. Just did the Israelites just did what the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of prisoners, who was in a dungeon, and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. Pharaoh, excuse me, Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. Wow, that's rough. So, the next part is called Ozodius. So, as we see, again, I'm going to go over this topic because I've been going over this topic throughout this whole thing. But this is an example, again, of what happens when you don't listen to the Lord. You disobey the Lord, things happen. Now, it's not as bad as this, but if we were at this point where we were in Moses' time frame, this would be pretty rough. A lot of people would probably end up getting killed, including me. I would end up dying because of what happened. But I'm a tad bit Jewish, so I actually don't think I would die. But it's one of those things that this is stuff that you have to reconsider for back in the early times when these stories just formed. You have to think about how that, if it was today's world, how would you react to it? Would you still do it? And the problem is the Lord's let up on us so much that nobody actually gets punished the same way. If this was like it was back then, people would seriously see some pain in their life, and it's no joke. This stuff is serious, and the problem is people don't see it work as much because we have too much darkness in the world right now for people to even remotely consider. You can say a prayer, you have to really really feel like you sent the prayer off to actually make it work. But when it comes down to it, we see far too much darkness in our world for people to see their prayers work as easily today. And that's part of the reason and the problem why it's so hard for us to see some prayers work. Some people will be like, well, that's just a weird coincidence. I don't know. Sometimes I don't even know what to say to them, but and then they make me feel stupid sometimes. I'm like, okay, if this is how you feel about this, then you don't have to listen to anything I have to say. You can just assume. But I've told people before when stuff happens to them, you notice it, and it has happened to people before, but they just some of them don't actually believe in our God. They believe that they believe in other stuff. And it's unfortunately that's how things are right now. We got so many mediums out here in the world filling people's heads with nonsense. I said that backwards. Filling people's heads with nonsense, such as like you can go on social media right now and you'll end up like so. All right, here's an example. You go on social media and what you normally click on, like you'll click on like some metal band or something, and then you'll get like a whole barrage of like cute gothic girls. This is leading down to the rabbit hole. And then on top of the gothic girls, it leads you into like paganism and some other places that aren't necessarily where you want to be. But then you'll be looking at it and you'll be like, this seems like it's pretty cool because people are doing it. In reality, the truth is that's when you have to depict, is that what you want to be doing? Or do you want to do you want to remain in your faith? And a lot of people don't even have faith anymore because they're so busy looking at those cute gothic girls. Like I don't blame you, but like you gotta be aware of what you gotta be aware of what you want to bring into your life. If you want to bring that lifestyle into your life, then that's your choice. But you have to remember, you're gonna upset our Creator. You're gonna upset God by like choosing that over Him. You know, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to impress a woman. There's nothing wrong with that, but don't make it to a point where you obsess over it, because then it just becomes a bit of a problem. And then we have what we have now in the world that's going on, where like you see men acting all depraved of stuff, and you see women doing a lot of really bad stuff too. So it works both ways, and it's unfortunate that like people ended up being stuck, being so depraved of stuff that they allowed themselves to resort to humiliation with on the internet, and that's what it is. You see some really humiliating stuff amongst people, and that's why like I'm even people do it. There's still people do stuff to me, but it's not as bad as like what it once was. Okay, but I still see people sitting there like taking snippets of things that I do and things I say. And yeah, sometimes they're funny. I'm a pretty funny guy. But when it comes down to it, there's a fine line between humiliation on the internet, and there's a fine line between being like not, there's a fine line between humiliation, and then there's the like vast majority of people who don't really try to humiliate themselves, if you guys get what I mean. But like there's so much humiliation online, it's not even funny. People just accept it as it is, and accept it as like normal human behavior when it's not. You know, I could probably go over to my Twitter account right now and point out a bunch of things I see that people are doing that are kind of humiliating themselves. You know, what's up, Mendez? You caught me. You're in here listening to the Bible, brother. Like you're gonna get a dose of like what I do here. So, so all right. The Exodus. During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites, go worship the Lord as you requested. Take your flocks and herds, as you have said, and go and also bless me." The Egyptians argued the people to urged the people to hurry and leave the country, for otherwise, they said, we will all die. For the people took their dough before the yeast was added, and carried it on their shoulders, and in kneading through warped clothing. So the dough was just going through their clothing at that point. You know how like when you have dough, it just sits and then you can't wipe it off as easy. That's what's going on, because they're running off and they made this dough and they just don't want to leave it behind, so they gotta take it with them. So the Israelites did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for the article of silver and gold and for clothing. The Lord had made the Egyptians favorably disposed towards the people, and they gave them what they asked for. So they plundered the Egyptians. Thousands of men on foot, besides women, children, and many other people, went up with them, and also large droves of livestock, both flocks and herds. With the dough the Israelites had brought from Egypt, they baked loaves of unleavened bread. The dough was without yeast because they had been driven out of Egypt and did not have time to prepare food for themselves. So, if you remember correctly, this could have been what like God was getting at when he was like, "You will not eat any food with yeast in it. All this bread you're gonna make is not gonna have yeast with it. And if you eat yeast, you're gonna be disconnected from the group of Israelites that we just got out of Egypt." So that's what he was saying when he meant that. So now the length of time the Israelite people lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years to the very day, all the Lord's divisions left Egypt because the Lord kept vigil that night to bring them out of Egypt. On this night, all Israelites are to keep vigil to honor the Lord for the generations to come. So, all right. So every Israelite is out of Egypt right now with their dough. So we're getting ready to read the next one, which is the Passover restrictions, which is I guess that kind of explains how Passover works. I'd have to look more into Passover. I know Passover is like right before Easter, so it's something that like I was told that I should start doing as a Christian. So I'm gonna look more into that and learning it. Apparently, I think you can eat fish, and no beef products or anything like that because of this event. Because it's a sacrifice to our God. So, Passover restrictions. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "These are the regulations for Passover meal. No foreign may eat it. Any slaves you have brought may eat it after you have circumcised them. But a temporary resident or a hard worker may not eat." Wow, that's yeah. "It must be eaten inside the house. Take none of the meat out of the house. Do not break any of the bones. The whole community of Israel must celebrate. A foreigner residing among you who wants to celebrate the Lord's Passover must all have males in the household circumcised. Then he may take part like one born in the land. No circumcised male may eat it. The same law applies both to the native born and to the foreigner residing among you." And so that's a rule he made. So basically this rule goes you have to be circumcised to be able to eat anything on Passover. And if you're not allowed to eat anything. And if you're a foreigner, you're allowed to, but you have to get circumcised. So that's the rule. That's the rule there. All the Israelites did what the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. And on that very day, the Lord brought the Israelites out of Egypt by their divisions. So, all right. So they're finally out of Egypt, and that's the rule the Lord made for them. So we're on to chapter 13 now. So, yeah, that's interesting. I have to look more into Passover. I know there's a certain way you eat during Passover that I'm curious now because I'm gonna try to start respecting that more than I was in the past because I made Christianity into like while doing it on the channel and reading the Bible, I made it into more of a lifestyle. And I'm not perfect by all means. I still make my mistakes, but like I'm doing better than I was. And that's the whole purpose of the Bible is for you and people to learn from your mistakes and try to improve upon yourself because that's the main purpose of what this is about. There's an understanding where what I'm understanding as I'm grasping this and reading this is like it's about learning to be a better version of you and try to embrace more of God instead of embracing your actions upon things. Like, yeah, you're not gonna be perfect. You're still gonna get mad, and there's some, I've experienced some things before where I was like really really angry, and then I started feeling better because that's a way of how you handle things when it comes down to being Christian. Yeah, you might get mean at times, but you're not perfect either. So if you slip up, that's why we always pray. That's why we always like That's why we're always forgiven, because we choose to we choose to try to change as human beings instead of remaining the same. Now, as for the way society is, I think society could, see a huge change. And I really think society could do things differently. And the more and more I'm reading the Bible to you guys and getting it out there onto YouTube and all that, people see that and they start to change themselves. And then they take more of a notice into me and what I'm doing here for you guys and reading off all the stuff that I'm reading. So that way I can teach a whole bunch of people stuff and the world starts to become a better place. And trust me, I've seen it. I've seen the world like slightly change recently, and it's pretty cool to watch. It's pretty cool to watch some of the changes take place. But there's always going to be that. There's always going to be that one little bit of darkness after you've gotten rid of most of the darkness. Darkness doesn't ever die, and that's something like to get darkness to die. That would be a perfect world, and we're not meant to be perfect. We're not flawless human beings, okay? If we were flawless human beings, the world would be too perfect. And I don't think God wants us to be flawless human beings. That's why Jesus Christ died on the cross for us, because the Lord knew we were gonna make mistakes. So, all right. Concertion of the firstborn. Chapter 13. The Lord said to Moses, consecrate, okay, consecration of the firstborn, okay. Consecrate to me every firstborn male, the first offspring of every womb among the Israelites. Bring me the weather, the first offspring to every womb among the Israelites belongs to me, whether human or animal. Then Moses said to the people, commemorate this day, the day you came out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, because the Lord brought you out of it with a mighty hand. Eat nothing containing yeast. Today, in the month of Aviv, you are leaving. When the Lord brings you into the land of Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivitites, Jebusites, the land he swore to your ancestors to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you are to observe this ceremony in this month. For 7 days eat bread made without yeast, and on the seventh day hold a festival to the Lord. Eat unleavened bread during those 7 days. Nothing with yeast in it is to be seen among you, nor shall any yeast be seen anywhere within the borders. On the day you tell your son, I do this because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt, this observance will be for you, like a sign on your hand and a reminder on your forehead, that this law of the Lord is to be on your lips. For the Lord brought out of Egypt with his mighty hand. You must keep this ordinance at the appointed time, year after year, after the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites and gives it to you. He promised on an oath to you and your ancestors. You are to give over the Lord the first offspring of every womb. All firstborn males of your livestock belong to the Lord. Redeem with a lamb every firstborn donkey, but if you do not redeem it, break its neck. Redeem every firstborn among your sons. In days to come, when your sons ask you, what does this mean? Say to him with a mighty hand, the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. With Pharaoh stubbornly when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go. The Lord killed the firstborn of people and animals in Egypt. This is why I sacrifice to the Lord the first male offspring of every womb, and redeem each of my firstborn sons. and it will be like a sign on your hand and a symbol on your forehead that the Lord brought us out of Egypt with his mighty hand. So, and then 14, I'm gonna save crossing the sea, the next one for the next video, because this is gonna be Moses' important part. So, yeah, I read chapter 12 and 13 to you guys. So, if you want more of that, just follow the channel. Or I'll try to stream it here tomorrow in the morning. So if you want to hear the rest of that story, feel free to stop in. I'm streaming every morning, until I decide to make a change on something, which I'm still trying to make the video game channel pick up, but it's struggling. It's kind of a struggle. So I really need to figure out what I'm gonna do on it. Shorts are the only things that really pick up for me on the Bible channel. So that's why I do shorts so much over here. But besides that, as you can see, the Lord, the Lord showed them the way out and how to get out, and the Lord did what He needed to. And as you can see, Pharaoh went through a rough time because he chose not to listen, and it just kept happening and happening and happening until Pharaoh's just like, okay, take everything and go because I'm tired of this, you know. And the moment people started actually like, the Lord put that like the Lord put that last punishment on them where He was wiping everybody out. That was the moment that Pharaoh was like, okay, it's time. It's time for you guys to leave because this needs to happen, or people are gonna die. So, and this is something that like, and if we were to go back in time and deal with things the way they were back then, like what I just read to you guys, where the Lord was like, I'm about to do this. If we had more of that in today's society, people would be frightened. People would be frightened, and they wouldn't be making mistakes as often, or they wouldn't be doing such horrible stuff as often. Because these things, like, I still see it today. Like I said, I have incidences in my own life where I see things happen with me, or I see things happen around me, and it's a serious lesson that needs to be learned and taught amongst people, and it's very, very hard to just show them that God exists if they don't want to believe it. um and the ones that lean into the paganism and black magic and all that other stuff, that's where part of the problem is, actually, because that became like this trending thing. I don't know why. I don't know why it became a trending thing, but it became like this thing that everybody grew fond of, and it became accessible more when spirituality became a thing. Because think about it this way, all right? Even after the movie Harry Potter was released, nobody was bothering with that stuff. It might have persuaded some people to go and do that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it didn't really start becoming popular till, I want to say, I'm trying to figure out what year I majorly saw paganism become a popular trending thing. And it's been a couple years. I used to hang out with like people that like wore crystals around their neck, and then I got involved in it. And there were a few times that I walked away from it, and my friends were still there. And like some of those people, I can still go see now, and they're doing the exact same thing they were years ago. You know, and then you go and you read a Bible and you try to remain around them, and it's just so hard to be around them because sometimes they're insufferable. Sometimes they force their beliefs on you, and then you don't really like, it's so hard to just get a grasp of what you're doing with like believing in God and all that just like when you're around it so much, it intertwines with what you're doing, and then it comes off as like you learning bad stuff that isn't even a part of like what the Bible is about. Now, if I could pull myself away from all the paganism, I would. But there's a part of it that like will still linger about amongst people that I know, because the people I talk to and know, some of them, they follow that stuff, and it's unfortunate because I try not to get involved with those people too much anymore. But there's people like I'm slowly
I think I'm slowly starting to see people drift more towards, the Holy Bible, because they're starting to realize that people that actually read the Bible are more rebellious than the people actually doing paganism and stuff like that. And I think people see that. And, I'm witnessing a lot of people like come more towards Christ than they were a little while ago. And it's weird that I'm seeing it because I myself I took the initiative because I was kind of persuaded and inspired by somebody else to do it. So, all in all, it's a big revolving circle, and I can sit there all day and say, that I can sit there all day and say that I'm the one that started this, but no, we have Miss Melanie Mack to thank for this because she inspired me to do it. So, and yeah, it's really wild to see people just making their way to Christianity, wanting to get away from like paganism and stuff like that. And I see it daily now. I see more and more people wearing their crosses. I see more and more people, praising God, saying God bless, stuff like that. And we're slowly starting to see things disappear as time goes on. We're seeing more and more like, paganism. Like I'm seeing, like I said, I've seen signs just disappear from an entire area based on paganism. So it's just really it's really interesting and awesome to see that people are going to that great length to make changes in this world. And I've seen a lot go on as recently, and you know, I'm glad to see these changes going on. So um, but yeah, it's been pretty awesome since I started doing this. The numbers are showing for themselves. I got a high amount of numbers right now that I never thought I'd see. But because, I can look at it right now and tell you what I'm at. I'm at 859 right now, which is like literally like 40 away from 900. After 900, I'll be at my like I'll be at my goal. I'll be at my whole entire goal. And that's incredible to know that I'm that far away from the goal. I got like 2 more weeks, and it's not going to be 2 more weeks. It's going to be less than 2 weeks because you know what? With the way this is gone, I can either say it's going to be in 2 weeks or in a couple days. I will sit there at 1,000 and I'll take a picture of that for you guys. And that'll be one of the most incredible things I've ever achieved in my entire life. Next, what needs to happen is I need to rake in the hours watched and the amount of times people watch my short. So that's something that really, really, I hope starts picking up for me because I'm seeing the same type of numbers, which is perfectly fine. I love seeing those high thousand range numbers. But looking at everything, where's my short at right now that I was looking at? All right. So my short right now that I posted earlier today, um, it's at 1,000, 1,200. So that's 1.2k. That's really good for a Bible reading channel, considering the fact that like I didn't even expect that outcome, but because I'm uploading this stuff every single day, it just really really starts to you'll see it in the algorithm, and then it'll people will see it on their phone, and they'll either leave a bad comment or they won't look at it at all, or they'll look at it and listen to it and be like, okay, this is a complete whatever. But it's really awesome to know that I'm able and capable of getting on every phone right now. That I'm able and capable of getting on every laptop out there, every personal device that's out there. And it's nice. It's nice to know that people will recognize me if I go somewhere then. But the problem is with being recognized, you have a bunch of people that you know, I'm hoping they change. I'm hoping people change their ways with what I'm doing, and listening to me will help you a lot. But you have to be the one to pick one of these up. I have two of these right now, ladies and gentlemen, which is one of the greatest things ever. Like, it's so cool to have two of these. And I'm gonna be reading this one later on the channel. Once I'm done with this one we have a long way to go, ladies and gentlemen. We're right here at the very beginning. So if I keep trucking, we'll get pretty far, but I'm right here in the center when it comes to me reading it. So this one right here, this is actually a bit different than this one. So you'll hear the difference when I start reading this. But like I actually opened this up and read a part of it, and it was completely different, translated differently to the one we're reading right now on the channel here, which is the new international version. Now, as for that there in itself, a lot of people will sit there and tell me this is a fake version of the Bible. And then a lot of people will, there's people out there that are telling me that it's a good version of the Bible. So I think it really depends on where you're coming from on it. Like I've heard people tell me go get a copy of King James. King James is one of the hardest Bibles to read. I sat there and I looked at a PDF for that, and somebody tried reading it, and it was just so hard and difficult to read. Now, if you think I struggle with names in this, try taking that and just making that times two. All right, making it times two. It wouldn't even. I would have so much trouble reading that thing. And the Bible is meant to like help you a little bit with like understanding, things a lot better and all that. So that's why I like reading it. And plus it puts a sense of relief in me knowing that I read the Bible and then I have a bit of peace inside of me after I read the Bible. So the reality of it is like if you really really want to get into doing this, you just have to like just go and do it. There's no, oh, I can't do it because I don't have time. No, let me tell you something. You can sit down and literally read one chapter of this thing on your lunch, on your break for 15 minutes at lunch. Like you can read a whole section in less than 15 minutes. It's not that difficult. And if you're one of those people being like, yeah, I don't have the time to be doing that. Well, then you're not making time for God. You're not getting God in your life. You have to make time for God for you to be in God's graces. Like if you're reading, the thing that I notice about this is like every day I do this, I'm in God's graces and I receive a blessing more than ever. And when you do this, that's what you'll see. You'll see yourself. You'll see your whole life just turn around and change and be totally different than what it once was. And that's what people should want is a different life. There's some things that people cannot ditch, and that's where when you get the Bible in, boy, like you can see that you can see that you can change. And there's a lot of stuff there's a lot of habits I kicked by reading this just because it's meant for us to feel better. Like it's a form of healing actually. And nobody wants to really sit there and believe that, and that's why I continue to do it. A lot of people out there will always be like, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. And you know what? That's a big excuse. Because if you have time to go outside and smoke a cigarette, then you certainly have time to sit down and read a Bible. Ditch the cigarettes for a Bible. It'll show you, you will see a difference in your life. Trust me. And those are the people those are the same people that make that make the excuses are the cigarette smokers. Believe it or not, they're always making excuses. They're always like talking about how they work so hard, stuff like that. And seeking human attention on your break is, perfectly fine, but like what if there is nobody around to talk to? Then what are you going to do? You sit there and you read your Bible, Get God in your life. And then you will see your entire life change around because you chose to do it. But hey, that's just how I feel about it. I feel like people could change a lot of stuff in their life. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff that people could do to make a difference in their life. And so yeah, so there was a video I made here the other day on the channel. That was about like a certain type of personality. All right. Now, I'm not knocking anybody, but there's a certain type of personality in the world right now that needs to be put in check a little bit more because it's really making a full-grown men look bad. Okay, it really does. All right. So I made a video today on my gaming channel, which if you haven't checked it out, check out No Such Time Gaming. All right, no such like my name and then gaming, and it's a video about how like anime is promoting male betas to be the protagonists of their show. All right, and you know, and what the most interesting part is like you look at people like Batman, you see how bulky he is, see how buff he is, and then you look at somebody like, let's just say you look at like Deku from My Hero Academia, you can definitely see that that's not a character that's built to be a hero. So, and my problem is that my problem is that in today's world we see that as acceptable far too often, and it's a bit disturbing that, well, not disturbing, it's a bit bothersome that as a big guy, man, as a big guy, this is why I've turned myself away from a lot of things, because we don't see too many big men in movies anymore kicking butt. And I know this is going off a little topic from the Bible, but at the same time it's not, because when you think about the prophets in the Bible, you think about Joseph. I don't foresee Joseph being a small guy, you know. Or you look at was his name Abraham? He worked on a farm. He did farm work, okay? So when you picture a farmer, you picture a really built buff guy. You don't picture some scrawny kid pushing bales of hay around. No offense, but if you picture a farmer, then you're gonna picture a big buff, like, masculine man. You're not gonna picture some scrawny little, you know, kid pushing bales of hay around. That's just how I picture things. And when it comes down to it, this is something women need to be more aware of, because women are the ones that are really, really digging themselves deep into this, and that's where the masculine males are starting to have a problem. That's why I've been emasculated a few times by people, and I tell you what, that's not very much fun. I hate being mean, but they people do it to me too often, and it's like, how can you sit there and just be okay with trying to emasculate a person when they're not technically like that? And so I get in trouble a lot for that kind of stuff, because people have emasculated me and accused me of stuff, and then turn around and they're nothing like that, man. And then they'll be the first ones in a Reddit page or something to, talk horribly about another human being that they made the page about to begin with. So when you're doing that, you gotta watch, because you could, emasculating a full-grown man from his masculinity is a bad habit, and it does need to be put in check. And we in America here, we're seeing less and less of the masculine man be a thing. Professional wrestling back in the 90s and early 2000s, we used to see a lot of masculine men. Now we're seeing, yeah, we're seeing smaller men, but we're still seeing the masculine men be up there on the totem pole as the number one champion or something like that. And it's bothersome that we see this here a lot in America, considering the fact that, like, most men are supposed to be big and built like me. Like, in the video, you can see me stand up, and you can see my entire build, that I'm a big guy. And I could literally, like, I have some force behind my punches. And that should be the ideal guy women should be looking for. But, in today's age, we put that, like, scrawny little man as an example of what, you know, it's bothersome, because you can see it everywhere now. You can see how badly it's gotten. And the problem is we let that get too far, and now we're all kind of affected by it. Like, I would like to see more ladies get with, like, bigger men, because, this whole, like, ladies going with these smaller men are kind of disrespecting the male populace in general, and it's very discouraging to see at times, and it does actually, for me, it's part of my problem in life as to why, like, I haven't been in a relationship, because it's always about anime promoting that scrawny beta instead of a big masculine man. And that's why, like, I would like to see that to start to go away. And that's why, like, when you look at characters like Batman and Superman, you start to really see the difference between Eastern culture and anime, and Western culture and actual superheroes. Just remember, you take Goku, put him up beside Batman, you're gonna see a small guy in Goku. Not And Batman is the big built guy. And still, like, I don't get that. I don't get that line of thinking, because we've taken that in here in America, and it's very discouraging for me as a male that's built and kind of an alpha, or a sigma, as people would say. It really, really does get discouraging. And again, in the Bible, I can't picture Moses or Joseph like a smaller guy. I cannot. Like, and the only way that be done is if you put that as a show. But then even then, I'd be like, this is totally wrong. I'm not watching this. Even if it is accurate to the Bible. I don't want to see some scrawny guy looking like he's supposed to be in charge of everything. Because that's something that we've pressed here in this country, and we see it too often, and it needs to change. It needs to change. That's why, like, when you look at East the Eastern culture, they look for the American men that are big. Those women, they're always looking for American men that big. But what I'm seeing here is that the women here are looking for these small little guys and then giving them all the respect in the world. And we've even resorted to calling them small kings, which is like, it's like, dude, what are you doing? Why do you want to be called that? A king is supposed to be a fearless big man. Zelda's father was a fearless big man. I'm making references to this because we're seeing too much of what I'm saying here in America, and I do hope and pray that things change. You know, we really, really need to start seeing some things change here in America, and that's one of them. You know, and then with that, personality becomes a whole barrage of people getting on, like my case, and thinking I'm a bad guy, when the reality of the truth is the little guy in the room would be the first one to pull a gun on you, try to shoot you, try to do something horrible, you know? And what they do is they think they're being funny, but the reality of the truth is it's, you know, the Ten Commandments even states don't take people's life. One of the Ten Commandments say that, you know? So we live in a time where, like, people have taken the Ten Commandments and wiped it out and don't believe it anymore. And that's why, like, you know, promotion of guns and stuff like that. If I keep reading the Bible and people start to realize what the Ten Commandments are all about, I could see the gun populace dying down in a big way. I could. I could see a lot of stuff changing. You know, we're all trying to be right with the Lord, right? So why would we go against what the Lord wants? If a gun is going to kill a human being, that would not be what the Lord put the guns on earth for. The Lord didn't even, like, the reality of the truth is, I believe it, some sinister man sat down and created military weapons. Because you look at the way they handled stuff then to the way we handle stuff now. They were using bows, they were using swords. Now we're using full-blown guns to take a man's life. You know? And that's not something we should be doing in today's society. Ten Commandments still exist to this day. And the problem is like, we got too many alpha boys out there. Yes, the alpha boys, that's what women are giving into, the alphas now. I mean, not alpha, but sorry, my correction. We got too many beta men out there, and women giving into those, and that's why they perceive it as okay to buy guns and weapons of mass destruction as opposed to sticking up for yourself. You are meant to stick up for yourself. That's why you have these. You know, I don't condone to fighting, but if you have to stand up for yourself, that's what these are for, buddy. You don't go and take somebody's life like this. That's something that, like, the Ten Commandments state, do not take a person's life, but there's so many men out there like, I'm gonna shoot to kill. So you're gonna break the Ten Commandments that God gave us. Good luck with that. You're not gonna go to a pretty place then. If you break into 10 Commandments, you know, you can always be forgiven, but, like, that's one of the major rules that God put in the Bible for us to follow. You know, and that's why it's such a horrible thing. Men are too cowardice to lose a fight. They'd rather, yeah, I agree with you, Mendez. Full on, I agree with you, brother. Like, and it's sad to see it because we don't see, because, dude, I keep talking about it, but, like, I have to keep bringing it up, but, like, we look at the 90s where people like Stone Cold Steve Austin was considered as an alpha, okay? And we look at anime now and we see the characters are much, much smaller. Now, I'd rather have Stone Cold Steve Austin standing beside me ready to kick someone's ass instead of like Luffy or Deku or something like that. You know? Or, like, I wouldn't even prefer Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins would get destroyed by, like, some bigger guy. Even though Seth Rollins is, like, pretty good. But, like, that's what I would want to see. No, I don't, Pistolkin. I don't do that. But yeah, it's incredibly crazy that we are in times where like people will be the first to pick up a gun instead of fight with their fists, you know? And that's what that's what that's what it's supposed to come down to is you're supposed to learn self-defense and, protect yourself, but that that 10 commandments stands to this day. So, but yeah, it's just wild that people do that kind of stuff all the time, and just something to think about. Just something I think like really really should be changed. Um and really needs to look at. And the problem is our government had allowed that. So right there is your main point of where the dark and evil forces are is our government, because the government was the one that allowed that. So right there is the point that that's how it all became capable. So I don't know. I don't really go out and vote or anything like that. I stay here at night, play games, and read this read the Bible to you guys. I don't go out and do too much because every time I step outside the house, you know, um, I got people who just disagree with me for reading this, or I'll walk down the street and have some guy flaunting about his haircut, even though it's like I don't really care that you have a haircut, just some insane stuff sometimes. So, but yeah, it gets pretty intensely wild sometimes out there. So, but all right, I'm gonna say a prayer before I get out of here, and then I'm gonna call it a night, and I'll be back later tonight with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 stream and talking about some other stuff. So, I'm gonna say a prayer for the last few minutes and then get out of here. So, all right, Lord Jesus Christ, I pray to you tonight that you make the gun populace go down. We need you to make sure that goes down and make people more aware that they don't exactly need those. And the people having those, Lord, I pray you do something where they get them taken from them so they don't have them anymore. Lord, we need to find a way to prevent, all this, like, bad stuff happening in the world. And Lord, I think you can do it justice by helping men understand they don't need those, that you built them to be able to protect themselves and things as such. Lord, I I want to find I'd like for you to show us the best way possible to handle things in bad times like that. Lord, I also pray that these bad times we're in, I pray that you put some direction in people's life and lead them back to you. Lord, like I said, if there's people I know that really doesn't need a Bible in their hand and really need to learn the Word and really need to start reading. And I think it's best that you make your presence here known on earth so everybody here can know you exist. Lord, if you need to do it again, use me as your beacon of light and I'll show people you exist. Or you can use, people watching here. I'm sure they wouldn't mind using you as a way of showing they exist. But Lord, we really, really need to start getting you out there and making sure that people know you exist. And Lord, anybody that's dealing with stuff today, that's dealing with some bad stuff, or consistently calling my phone, or just people harassing them, Lord, show the people they can't be harassing people. Lord, also anybody that needs it, put a big shield around them to make sure they're safe and okay. And as always, bless those who need to be blessed, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. So there you go. You have it. I'm gonna stick around. I got like 2 more minutes yet, and then I can get out of here. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's I'm seeing a lot of wild stuff go on lately. It's not wild to an extent where it's like super bad, but it is still like pretty wild out there. And we really, really need the Lord in the world right now. So that's why I pray every day, and I hope that persuades you to pray. Um, if you're wondering where to get a Bible, go to your nearest bookstore, go to your nearest church, get baptized and pick up a Bible at the church. You don't need to always go to church, but Church is good. It is. But that's why I do this on the weekdays, because I don't get to make it to church. And this is one time I can surely speak about God and get God into the world for you guys and get Jesus Christ out there too. Cause tell you what, we really need Jesus Christ in this world today. So I have a weird story, but like I don't know if somebody dressed up like him, but like I was at a store a little while ago, like years ago, and there was a guy that stepped out of a car, and it wasn't even Halloween, but he was dressed like Jesus Christ, and I looked at him like, what's going on here? So he walked into the store as normal as possible, and he went to the restroom, and then he left, and he was driving like this white car and everything. I'm like, that just can't be real, but who knows? Like, I don't know. I've seen some pretty weird stuff, but if that was like, dude, if that was Jesus Christ, then he walks among us already. But like that was wild. I thought that was funny. But all right, everybody, I'm out of here. I hope I made you guys laugh with that last one. And have a good night. God bless you. And I will be back later for a later stream with video games and random chats. So all right, have a good night.